We're talking Carolina Panthers on the Our Football Network, Our Football YouTube channel. Anytime we talk about the Carolina Panthers, Rashad Beard joins us. Panther Nation Podcast. How's it going, Rashad?
It's going great. Fantastic. No complaints, man.
This is just turning into a annual deal, or I should say a semi-annual deal, because you're usually the first interview after the season ends.
I shouldn't have been the first one this time. I should not have been the first one.
Rashad, I know, but you are. It just worked out that way. The Panthers were not the worst team in the NFL this season. That's a fact. But you just happened to coincidentally be our very first 2025 offseason preview interviews. So just got that way. And we'll see if you get that lucky again when we wrap up the draft after, which hopefully will be a really big offseason. Hopefully a successful offseason for the Carolina Panthers. And that's why we want to talk to you. Even though the offseason, we're recording this on Friday. Of course, the offseason will be over in a couple of days for Carolina and about 17 other teams. But still, this isn't about week 18. This is about the offseason. And unless there's some sort of a serious injury by a key player, which we hope is not going to happen in week 18, then we have pretty much all the ammunition we need to take a look at what the Panthers need to do to improve themselves for the upcoming season. So first of all, I know it wasn't the season that you wanted. You didn't expect a playoff or anything like that. But after the way the season began, this had to be considered a successful kind of season.
Yeah, no, I'm very happy. And most Panthers fans should be very happy with the way this season has ended. Obviously, not the start that any of us wanted with the benching of Bryce Young. He gets benched a couple games into the season. Andy Dalton comes in. He miraculously has some car accident that I'm very skeptical that occurred. But he is injured, and Bryce Young gets to re-enter back into as the starting quarterback. And since then, he has been playing absolutely very well. And I don't think anyone predicted it. And then listen, I know I'm a homer, but I don't think anybody has dealt with what Bryce Young has dealt with in NFL history and has had the comeback that he has had in one season, right? We've seen some guys come back in another. Sam Darnold, for example, great job with what he's doing with the Minnesota Vikings. Given the way his career is going, excellent, probably going to win comeback player of the year. But for Bryce Young to do it in one season, I mean, if you compare the first two games and you look at the first two games to what he's done over the past 7, 8, 9 games, he ranks, his stats rank up there as a top 10 quarterback. If you just isolate post benching, sure. He is playing that well. And I think he needed it. The Carolina Panthers needed it. Dave Canales needed it. Dan Morgan needed it. And so I feel great going. And again, the wins and losses have not. The wins and losses are not a quarterback stat, right? There's been so many other things that have been going on with Bryce Young. His receivers haven't helped him. Probably another 500 or 600 yards left on the field by drops alone. And I'm not being facetious. I'm being absolutely 100% accurate. There's probably another 500 or 600 yards left on the field via drops by the wide receivers, right? And so if he has those completions, his stat line looks even better. And so Bryce Young, he is not the problem. And again, is he perfect? Absolutely not. But he has played his way out of his hole. Yes. And to me, he is the guy. There's no question, no debate. He is the guy going into 2025. And so we can turn our discussions to talk about something else, talk about another position.
Absolutely.
Because Bryce Young is not the guy. He is the guy moving forward until obviously franchise discussions. We aren't quite there yet, but I'd be willing to put my stamp on it soon going into next season, probably the first 6 or 7 games. He should continue what he's doing leading to the end of this season.
Yep, and that is a very big hole to fill. No question about it. It is not easy. Every NFL team searches for it, and it looks like the Panthers are real close to finalizing that accomplishment. And we'll see, like you said, if they can get the kind of start next season and kind of pick up where he left off at the end of this season, then they're pretty much there. And what's so interesting, too, And I'm not look, we're still a few years away from this, but after the last season, everybody was talking about the comparison of CJ Stroud and Bryce Young.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so one-sided. All of a sudden this year, if you just take a look at what happened to CJ Stroud when he lost his receivers and he lost his talent and he had to step up against better competition this year, first play schedule, not so easy. And Bryce Young, during his best games, is stretch of whatever it was. What was it? How many games did he play when he came back? 6, 7?
Man, I can't remember.
So half the season. Let's say it was about half the season.
Yeah, half the season.
And that half the season was better than CJ Stroud's, let's say, 8 games during that time. So again, the point is it's way too early to when anybody was ripping Bryce Young last year or earlier this season. You just have to, and I don't think the comparisons are fair anyway. It's not fair to the two of them, but it's just what we do. And I think it just shows you, once again, you got to just relax. Just look at, like you mentioned, Sam Darnold. Sometimes it takes these kids a while. They're rushed into the NFL so quickly, and they're pushed to play so fast. And sometimes they don't have the right coaching. We talked about that last year. We talked about that before the season began. But yet they bring in Dave Canales, and you've got to be very happy with the fact that Dave Canales has been able to find something in Bryce Young that the other coaching staff could not.
Yeah, and again, like I said earlier, going back to Bryce Young and what he started with, it was not good. He had a rough start dealing with a head coach that got fired midseason in his rookie season. That's just a lot to deal with as an individual. And so he's been able to bounce back, and salute to Dave Canales. A lot of us, including myself, questioned the benching of Bryce Young. I thought it was going to destroy him, but it obviously worked. And so Canales has his thing with these quarterbacks, and so far it's proven to work out fine. And Canales deserves the right to fail. Right, we as Panther fans, he's earned the right to experiment, and for us as fans to trust him. And so far that has happened, and I can't complain. He's doing a great job with Canales. There's some nitpicky things with the run game I'd like to see more of, but as far as Bryce Young and his development, I have zero complaints with what Canales has done with him.
Yeah, it sounds like Tampa Bay fans last year regarding the running game. Yep. So something that he's going to probably have to work on. All right, well, talking about the coaching, let's start there. Do you think everybody's back? Do most of the key coaches are going to be back, or do they need to make any improvements there?
Man, that is the question going into the season, right? To next season. The biggest question is Evero going to be kept? Oh. That's the biggest thing. Our defense has been historically bad. We've given up, 200 yards plus rushing we've given probably up the most rushing yards in NFL history right now, right? Anytime there's running backs licking their chops to see the Carolina Panthers defense. And again, it's one of those things where, is it the coordinator or is it the personnel, right? As you know, we've dealt with a lot of injuries on that side of the football. Derek Brown goes down week 2. Shaq Thompson went down very early. We've lost guys throughout the season. It has not been it's been a lot of hurt players on the defense side of football. So we're dealing with a lot of guys that are inexperienced and probably wouldn't be on a lot of NFL rosters starting for us, right? If you look at our linebackers, we lost Trevin Wallace as well, our rookie linebacker who was playing well. You got Jacoby Windman in there. This guy's an undrafted guy. These guys should not be playing. They shouldn't be starting. And so you look at the Shad Tuttle. These guys, respectfully, it hasn't worked out very well. And so the question is it a personnel issue or is it the scheme, right? And
what do you think?
My personal opinion is I think it's a large personnel issue. I think scheme does have something to do with it. I think that Evero cannot fully execute his scheme because he doesn't have the players he needs to execute. Now, is it going to be a complete 180 if we get great players in? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But I'll say this. I'll go out on a limb and say this. I think we can improve? Is there a guy out there that we can get to improve the defense from a coordinator standpoint? I'm knocking at Salah's door. If Salah's available, I'm knocking at Salah's door because they do have a connection. Salah and Canales have a connection, right? They've coached together. And so if that option is available, I'm telling David Tepper to cut the check and go get
Absolutely.
Saleh.
Yes.
That's going to be your guy. But if not, I think you can do worse than Evero. If you go out there, start experimenting, there's worse coordinators out there. So I do think Evero, if you can improve upon him, deserves the opportunity to stick around and get some better personnel. So I'm playing both sides of the fence there. You're not going to get me to commit. They're not going to come back to say, hey, Shad said Evero is going to be great. I don't know. To be honest with you, we've seen our defense play better than this. There's some questions with the 4-3 versus the 3-4 people because we run a 3-4 base. So there's some question marks around that. And an 8 is not a good run defense, right? There's gaps in running the 3-4. And so there's question marks about that. I don't know. But give me some better guys on the roster and we'll see what we can do.
Well, I feel the same way. I mean, a lot of times the first thing you want to do if things aren't going bad is you want to fire the coach or whoever. And it's like, well, wait a second. As long as the guy that they are going to bring in is going to be better, just don't fire a guy to fire a guy. Make sure you have a plan. Make sure that you know that you've got someone that you targeted that is capable of being better like a Saleh. And if you know you can bring him in, then okay. Then we're okay with going that route. But if you just fire Evero and you're like, oh, I hope we can get Saleh, and you don't get him, then you might be in a worse position. So I completely understand. Okay. So that's it then. We can move on from the coaches. It's just defensive coordinator. That's the only major coaching change that potentially could impact the team in the offseason. Okay.
Yeah, I think defensive coordinator is the one to watch. Keep an eye on it. I think that Canales likes Evero, but you got to keep this in mind too. Evero was given to Canales as his defensive coordinator. He's in holdover from the prior regime.
That's true.
So that you got to think, hey, Canales could knock on Tepper's door and say, I need the opportunity to get my defensive guy.
Yep.
And so that's something you got to watch. Just keep it.
He earned it. Yep.
Okay.
Let's talk about free agency. And who will the team try to re-sign? And who do you think they're going to let walk as far as these significant players? Because taking a look at the list here, the free agency list, it's not like there's like a star-studded group of players. It looks to me that, correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks to me the main two guys, unrestricted free agents, are Shaq Thompson and Mike Jackson. Would that be correct?
Yes, that would be correct. I think that Shaq is very intriguing. Shaq has dealt with some injuries. I think he would absolutely take a team-friendly deal to stay here with Carolina. I believe he's that type of guy. The question is, do you want him as a leader to come back? Because you've got guys like Josie Jewell, who's I think he's got a 2 to 3 year deal, and Trevin Wallace was drafted essentially, in my opinion, to replace Shaq Thompson. So I think we've prepared to move on from him. I just don't know that we're going to do that. And I do think linebacker is a big question mark. That's, you got to fill those gaps. I think that is a problem with our run defense, right? You got some young guys back there. Maybe Shaq Thompson comes back. He helps fill those gaps and the run defense gets better. So Shaq is intriguing. I don't know if they're going to bring him back or not. I think they want him back as a leader, but it depends what he's going to want. We don't have a ton of cap space. I think we're going to look to improve our roster elsewhere. And I don't know. I don't know, bro. I think it's one of those emotional things. Shaq has been around for a long time, bro.
Yeah.
He was on the 2015 Super Bowl team. So he's one of those leaders that you want around, but also it's maybe time to turn the page. So my personal opinion, if you can get him back for a team-friendly deal, you bring him back from a leadership standpoint. But if not, it may be time to move on.
And he's been dealing with injuries lately, hasn't he? Not just this season.
the past 2 seasons, he's had early season-ending injuries. So we haven't seen Shaq on the field for a while here. So it's one of those things where it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. I feel like we haven't, we just haven't seen him. So to me, we've kind of already moved on. We prepared ourselves to move on. Trevin Wallace was having a great season before he went to IR. So I think the team is prepared to move on. I just don't know if they're going to pull the trigger.
Okay. What about Jackson?
Mike Jackson. So Mike has played very well over the past couple of seasons. He's kind of been the CB2. He's one of those guys that came from Seattle. We signed him when Dane Jackson went down to training camp. And Dane Jackson has not played well. He's got a good deal in the offseason, hasn't played well. We signed Mike Jackson for a team-friendly deal. He's played extremely well. That's one of the biggest gaps for me going into the offseason is the cornerback position, specifically CB2. Who's going to be that guy opposite of J.C. Horn? And Mike Jackson has done a great job. He could play himself out of a deal with Carolina and say, hey, I've kind of earned the right to get a bigger deal. And so I don't know. I think Mike Jackson, I would love to have him back. He's played very well, but we also could get younger there. And I don't know. It's going to be interesting, but I would love to have Mike Jackson back.
So chances are it's all about whether or not they can afford him. You think?
I think they'll be able to afford him. I don't think he's going to acquire that much money.
Okay,
but I think it's one of those things that I do think. And I don't. Can you bring his profile back up? Because I don't know how old he is.
28.
So that's prime.
Yeah.
So I would love to have him back. And also I would like to see the Carolina Panthers get a little bit younger and maybe draft a guy a little bit later in the 3rd, 4th round to kind of be that next guy up behind him. So JC, Mike Jackson, to me, is a very good tandem. If you look at their PFF stats, I think they've been a very good tandem as it ranks in the NFL. So I would love to have Mike Jackson back.
Okay. Any other free agents of note? Of course, there are several starters. I mean, you got Woods, and you got a couple guys in the offensive line. Dalton has to be re-signed. So and the special teams, all three, kicker, punter, snapper, all have to be re-signed. So who do you think they need to bring back, and who do you think they don't really need to worry about?
I'm going to be very, very honest with you. I think we've constructed this roster to where a lot of these guys we can move on from. I think that, listen, just going down the list, Austin Corbett is a guy that he's dealing with injuries, very similar to Shaq Thompson, right? He's a guy that we've kind of built our roster to sustain that type of injury. And you got Cade Mays, who's playing very well at center. You got Brady Christensen also, who can slide in at we have to re-sign him as well, but it won't demand a lot of money. But we kind of played ourselves in position where we can move on from a guy like Austin Corbett. Andy Dalton, I'd love to have him back, but he's not going to require that much money to bring him back. So I think we can either move on or find another veteran if he kind of wants more money. Xavier Woods and Jordan Fuller, both safeties. I think preferably I'd like to get younger there. I'd like to see us draft some guys in the safety room and get better there. I'm okay with moving on from those guys. Woods, if we can bring him back, maybe. Fuller has gotten benched. He's been a healthy scratch over the past couple games, so I don't see him coming back at all, to be honest with you. Sam Franklin, special teams guy, got to bring him back. Eddie Pinheiro, Johnny Hecker, both. I'm sorry, we can both move on from those guys. Hecker, I know he's one of the greatest punters of all time, going to be a great punter of all time history, but he's getting older. He's gone downhill. He has not played. He's not been playing that well. And Pinheiro, I'm sorry, we got to move on from him. He's been missing kicks lately. Ever since he was deemed as the most accurate kicker in NFL history, being protected, I might add. He's one of the most protected kickers in the league. We don't put him out there in risk-adverse situations.
Okay.
So he's kicking sub 30, 45-yard field. He's not getting put in situations where he's being challenged to make like long field goals. So ever since he took that mantle of being the most accurate kicker in NFL history, he's gone completely downhill. He's been missing kicks left and right. So get him out of here. Let's get another kicker. JJ Jansen is a legend, special teams legend. Bring him back if he wants to come back. Ian Thomas, we can move on from. Nick Scott, we move on from. And Tommy Tremble is intriguing as a kind of a rotational tight end. I'd love to have him back for a team-friendly deal. So that kind of ends out. We don't have any major guys. No. And I think that's what I love about this. There's nobody breaking the bank to come back, and it allows us to use that available cap space on other talent to bring into the roster.
Okay, and Dalton?
Andy, man, listen, we can move on from Dalton. I think that he's a definitely a veteran. If we can bring him back for a team-friendly deal, I bring him back. But I'm not. Bryce is my guy. He's locked up. If we can bring back another vet, i.e., I'm going to be honest with you, I love Jameis Winston. If we can get Jameis Winston on a team-friendly deal, bring him in, I'm not pressed to bring back Andy Dalton. I say that all that to say that.
Are there any connections with Winston, or it's just
not.
you like him?
There's not.
Okay.
I love Jameis Winston, bro.
Okay.
Listen, Jameis is a character, but I just want to see him in Carolina, bro. He's a good guy.
And David Moore, excuse me, he's also a free agent. He can go.
He has a connection to Canales. I think he comes back for a veteran, as a camp body slash veteran presence. But I can move on from David Moore.
Okay. All right. Next up. Let's talk about the team's top 5 offseason needs. And of course, this includes the draft. So this is the fun stuff. Let's get into you can give it to me in order or in any way you want. You want to give it to me in order, or do you want to go through the 5 and then you'll order them, or how do you want to do it?
I'm going to be honest. I don't have them ranked, so I'm just going to go off the dome, and we can rank them after I list them. How about that?
Perfect.
So I'll say the number 1 need for this team is probably going to be edge rusher. We don't have one. And you can go ahead and rank that at the top.
There's no debate. Number 1.
There's no debate that we need an edge rusher. Jadeveon Clowney, I think, has a role on this team as a rotational edge rusher. He is not an every down, but I think he gets worn down over the course of a game. And when he's been great, he's been rotational. So we've got to bring another rotational edge rusher in the building to make this thing happen. I like DJ Wonnum. Wonnum has been a pleasant surprise after coming back from his injury. He's gotten a lot of sacks recently. So I like DJ Wonnum. I just think we need another guy opposite of him, and then put Jadeveon Clowney in rotation. So,
by the way, have you seen any development from DJ Johnson?
A little bit. I'm gonna give him a little bit of credit, a little bit. But again, he's not a guy that is not been. He hasn't taken the bull by the horns and said, I'm the edge rusher that we need. He's a rotational guy as well. I would peg him as like the 4th edge rusher if we bring in another guy. So
and Barno hasn't worked out, I'm assuming.
Barno, he's as good as gone. So sorry, he's as good as gone. Respectfully, I thought he had the opportunity. The opportunity was there for him to come in and prove himself. He just hasn't done it. I think he's as good as gone. And hopefully he comes back. I don't know, but I think he's out of here. But I think going into the draft, if we're picking in the top 5, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. You got to look at a guy like Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter,
absolutely.
Top 5 pick. I'm going there, and I think you could the Micah Parsons clone, depending on whether we run a 3-4-4-3. I think that could be a thing. It definitely could be a thing.
What's Carolina's position right now in the draft?
Right now it's 6.
Okay.
It's 6. So I think that's definitely Carter range.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Because the 2 quarterbacks are going in the top 6. And then, Hunter's going in the top 6. That's 3. And Carter's going in the top 6.
Which leads to the next need. Great segue there. I think we need a DB. I talked about it earlier. You need that future guy. If you're picking in the top 4 and top 5, and Travis Hunter falls to you, I'm running to the podium. You got to take him. You got to take him. So I'm looking at DB. Cornerback Will Johnson is another guy I'm looking at. If we're in that top 6 range, he's right there. He's another guy I'd be willing to take. We need a cornerback. And here's the thing. Evaro's scheme is predicated upon really good cornerback play and secondary play. So you got to have good secondary play. And I think Will Johnson could. I know injuries a little bit here and there, but I'd be willing to take him or Travis Hunter if we're picking the top 3. Because if we lose and some things occur, we could pick as high as number 2. So,
wow.
Yeah, we could. A lot of things got to go that way, right? But we could pick, in theory, as high as number 2. We can go as low as 9, but as high as number 2. So I don't.
Well, if he gets 3, then you should be able to get. But here's the problem: is that if the Patriots get the first pick and they don't trade it, then they're going to draft Hunter.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's the only thing. But if they trade it, and if you have that 3rd pick, then it's still, you never know. It could be quarterback, and then you got Hunter. But yeah, it's still a big wish.
Which leads to my next need.
Okay.
Because there's another guy that we could pick in the top 5 or 6 that could fall in there. And that is, you got the big M back there. I'm going Mason Graham. Mason Graham is another guy that I'm looking at.
Oh.
Interior defensive lineman. I love Ashawn Robinson. I love Derek Brown, but you got to have some more beef. And I think Mason Graham, you pair him up with those guys, and you have an interior terror. That's nightmare activities. Okay, those three guys in rotation, nightmare. You got to go BPA. That's a nightmare for any offense to prepare for. And we got to stop the run. We cannot stop the run at all. We couldn't do it. You're giving up historical numbers against the run. And so I got to go Mason Graham if he's there potentially. So those are I would say, and I think those are in order, top three needs.
Okay.
I'd say edge rusher, interior defensive lineman, and then cornerback. I think those are the top three right now. And then I can go another one. I can go another defensive need.
Wow. Defense.
That's safety. That we need a safety. We talked about walking away from Jordan Fuller and Xavier Woods. Listen, you got to go there. You got to go safety. I'm looking at Watts, later second round, potentially Watts from Notre Dame.
Yes.
You got to go. You got to take him there. You got to take a look at that. We need a safety badly. Our safety play has been atrocious. There's been so many miscommunications in the secondary. That's why our defense has been so bad. It's not that the scheme is completely terrible. It's that we don't have the guys to execute the scheme. They're not executing the scheme properly. So if we get better play from our safeties, it could be better. It could be much better.
And what's the draft pick collateral right now? What does it look like?
We have our first top 5 pick. We traded our second pick. So the Bears have our second round pick, but we have the Rams second round pick. So it'll be a little bit later in the second round. Okay. So we'll have a second round pick. It'll just be later. Then we've got a third. I think we got our own third, and we got multiple fourths, multiple fifths, I believe, and a 6th round pick, and I believe a 7th round pick. Don't quote me on that, but I know we have multiple fourths for sure.
Okay. So anyway, you've got your picks in the first few rounds, so you're set.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. So can we go to offense now before we exit the top 5 and we put an end to this? Do we have one spot on offense? And is it gonna be the offensive line or is it gonna be wide receiver?
It is gonna be wide receiver. I think that you got to get Bryce Young more talent.
Yeah.
And the one thing we have been missing here, and we haven't had it since the legendary. I got his jersey on today. I didn't do that by design, but the legendary Steve Smith, we have not had a true guy that you have to prepare for and plan for. We haven't had that guy, and I love DJ Moore. With all due respect to DJ Moore, I don't think he was that guy. He wasn't a guy that you're prepping for and you got a scheme for. He wasn't it. We have got to find a true wide receiver one, whether that's in free agency or in the draft. Another guy that could be in that top 4, top 5 that we could, if we decide to really make things, shake the draft up, we could go Ted.
Ted
from Arizona.
You could do that.
You could go there, and I think that's going to give you some serious firepower going into next season. Ted, Leggett, Coker, Adam Thielen. You've got to give Bryce Young legit weapons because I love Leggett, but this has been a rough year for him. I'm gonna be completely honest. And he's owning it. He what I like about Leggett is he knows it. And he's been very acceptance of the criticism. He knows it, right? I hear y'all. I'm going to be better. So he's challenging himself. So Leggett, I do think could be eventually wide receiver 2. I think we got a tough battle for wide receiver 2 between Leggett and Coker. I believe Coker, I'm going to be completely honest, Coker has outplayed Leggett.
Yeah.
Undrafted
that was a nice story.
Out. And I told you, listen, I
came
on this show.
You did.
I came on this show, and I've earned my spot on this channel.
It. You said
I told you Jalen Coker was going to be a problem.
That's
and
right.
He came out and he played very, very well. And he's not like, he doesn't have crazy numbers, but he's certainly been available and outplayed Xavier Leggett on this roster. And
so Leggett, I don't think it's surprising that Leggett has struggled a little bit. He needs time. He's not one of those, he's not a McMillan. Even though he's a first round pick, he's nowhere near to being that type of guy. And that's not, it's unfair to put that pressure on him, but he was a first round pick and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, he looks like his ceiling is a high number 2, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that at all. If Leggett turns out to be a high number 2, and I want people to be clear when they listen, or any of his fans or people that love Leggett, listen to me clear. If Leggett turns out to be a strong wide receiver 2, that is okay with me. I'm okay. He does not have to be elite wide receiver 1. It's tough. That is a tough. You got to be an elite route runner. You got to have great hands. He's got a lot of drops this season. He's got some things. His route running has gotten better, right? He's a good route. He's made himself available, right? He's gotten open. The connection between him and Bryce just is not there for whatever reason. They got to get on the same page, right? And so once that happens, I think things can get better for Leggett. And if he turns out to be wide receiver 2, I'm okay with that. Between him and Coker, I think we've got wide receiver 2 on the roster. We just have to find that elite wide receiver 1, and I don't know that that's on the roster just yet.
And it looks like you should have. You tell me if I'm wrong, but you still feel confident that Sanders is your long-term number 1 tight end?
Jatavion, yes. So Jatavion, I thought you were talking about Miles Sanders for a second. I was like, no, Miles Sanders is not our running back.
No.
But no. So yes, JT was playing well, bro. He was playing really well up until he got injured. He took a really bad hit, kind of landed on his neck, and I forgot what game it was.
Okay.
But he got injured, tweaked himself, and since then he's kind of been on a downcline a little bit. But up until that point, he was playing really well. But I firmly believe that he is the future tight end 1. Now tight end 2, I think we need multiple tight ends. Yeah. And I don't think that exists on the roster. I like Tommy Tremble. He's been playing well. But I think we could get better there as well.
Okay. And wow, what a nice story that Chuba has really developed. I mean, even last year, he made some improvements, but he really seemed to take even another step up this season.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. That's one where I was completely wrong on Chuba. I did not like the Chuba Hubbard pick at first, but boy, he has worked his way into a nice contract. He's earned the right, and I'm a fan. I'm a Chuba Hubbard fan. Like he's been playing so well, and obviously he is on IR right now. He ended the season on IR, but had his first 1,000-yard season this year. He's completely developed. He's got great hands. His hands are great now, though he had bricks for hands at first, but he's on the jugs machine every day after practice, and he's gotten better and better and better. So good of a running back. And I just think that moving forward, we've got to find another a running back in rotation. Now, Jonathan Brooks was that guy. Obviously, he went down with the torn ACL. Again, the same ACL that he tore in college. Not good. That's not a good sign.
No.
And so we're hopeful that he comes back healthy, but I can see the Panthers looking for another running back for some insurance for Jonathan Brooks. Now, we saw a little peek of Jonathan Brooks, and boy, I like what I saw. When we pulled back that curtain a little bit, I was like, man, this kid is good. He's good. He's good. He's got a lot of potential. But we just haven't seen it. We haven't seen it, and unfortunately, we probably won't see it until mid next season again because he's dealing with another injury, ACL injury.
Yeah, because both Boone and Blackshear could be gone, or they could just bring them back as depth guys. But chances are, if you're not sure about Brooks, you would be in a situation, correct, where you're like, well, we got to get a really good number 2 because Sanders, he shouldn't be back, right?
He's out of here. Yeah. His contract is cuttable. We paid him a decent amount. And I think they're going to move on from Miles Sanders this offseason.
Okay. Let's see a couple more here before we wrap it up. And that is, let's take a look at the depth chart overall. We've obviously been looking at it here, and we'll have a link in the description of this video where you can surf along with us. You don't have to worry about my own surfing skills, but you can take a look at the, actually what we want to do here is take a look at the needs on the team that could possibly be handled in-house. Now, whether or not that's a developmental player that was drafted last year, the last couple of years, and that you have seen and you believe he's able to take a next step, or maybe there was an injury and people are looking at potential team needs for Carolina. And they don't realize, well, this guy's been injured most of the year. He's going to fill that gap. So are there any of those players on the roster that can help fill some needs on the depth chart?
Yeah, the biggest one, and it's obvious, we talked about it already, is on the defensive side of football. And you talk about Derrick Brown, right? Derrick Brown, Pro Bowler, very extremely elite player, right? Went down early in the season, and it's been a huge, massive loss. Our run defense has suffered. Our entire defense has suffered. So plugging him back in that defense, into the center of that defense, is going to be massive, right? And so I think he plugs the perceived gap tremendously, right? Obviously, we could add some talent there. You could add a Mason Graham and make it much more better.
Yeah.
But him coming back alone is going to be, and you pair him and A'Shawn Robinson together, it's a nightmare. A'Shawn Robinson is our sack leader right now, and from an interior, he's an interior defensive lineman, I might add. He's playing very well, very, very well. If you pair those two together, it's going to be a problem next season when that tandem is back together.
Do you think that Derek Brown is better as a 3-4 or a 4-3 lineman?
Oh, there you go. You've opened Pandora's box. That's the biggest question for Carolina. Is we're going to switch back to a 4-3 versus a 3-4? I don't know. I don't know. I like Derek. He's not a nose tackle. No. I think he if you look at this depth chart, he will plug in as the right defensive end or left defensive end, or you can swap him and A'Shawn Robinson at the defensive ends. One thing we do need also is a true nose tackle. We don't have that big monster, 350-pound, 6'5" monster nose tackle. We don't have that. Shad Tuttle, he's not it. Respectfully, he's not the guy he's not a nose tackle.
And neither is Crumedy.
Crumedy is not a pure nose. He's not a nose tackle.
Okay.
When I think nose tackle, I'm thinking Vita Vea. I'm thinking big, massive, a guy that can take on 3 or 4 blockers. That's not happening. Or 2 or 3 blockers, excuse me. That's not happening when nobody's checking for Shad Tuttle, right? They're single blocking him and doubling the edges. That's why we don't have many sacks. That's why we can't. The run game is not very good. We don't have the pieces.
Unless you go back to a 4-3, then it's a little bit different. It's not as you can still have. It's still good to have that piece, but it's not as necessary as a 3-4.
So that's a solid. Because Saleh runs a 4-3, right? And so if you bring Saleh in, that shifts everything. And I do think we have the personnel to play both. Because then you're talking about Clowney goes in as a defensive end but it also changes where we go from a draft perspective too. That takes Abdul Carter potentially off the block, off the board, because he's an outside edge rusher to me. I mean, you could probably throw him on the edge a little bit, defensive end as a speed rusher, but I just think it limits his. I don't know. I'm not going to sit up here and pretend like I'm the most X's and O's guy in the world, right? That's not my thing. But I think Abdul Carter to me is more of it. He fits the more prototypical edge rusher in a 3-4. So it
could go either way, but I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, so besides Brown, are there any other players that will fill roles that were injured, or any young players developing that could fill roles that were not starters this year that could be starters next year?
I think a big question is linebacker, right? What we're going to do with Shaq Thompson. Does Shaq Thompson come back, right? Is he going to be filled? Is he going to be re-signed to fill that gap, or is Trevin Wallace going to step up and be the? Thought he did a great job. He did a great job in that role, and I think that he could be the future. You know, if you look back in our history, the Carolina Panthers in the linebacker play, it's been fantastic. You talk about John Beeson, Luke Kuechly, Dan Morgan. These guys, man, you're talking about fantastic linebacker play, and I think Trevin Wallace could be the next up. He's played very well. That's another pick I wasn't a fan of. You could check the tape. That was the one I questioned when I came on the show. And he's done a fantastic job stepping in when he had to, right? You know, Trevin Wallace goes down. Shaq Thompson goes down. Then we had other injuries in the linebacker position, and he steps right back into that role. And it didn't miss a beat. You know what I mean? So
he was drafted a little bit higher than the most people originally expected, and that's why there was some question about that. But his stats told you differently. Definitely showed you he could put up big numbers and was a big player for that Kentucky defense. And that's what we talked about after the draft. So it looks like that before his injury, he showed that he could possibly be that guy. So yeah, that's a good one right there. Because again, if they stick to, especially if they stick to a 3-4, you're going to need 2 of them. They become a little bit more valuable. If it's a 4-3, then I guess it all depends on what they do. But again, these guys still can be good enough athletes. Sometimes they can move inside, outside. Who is Jewel? How did he play?
Jewel played very well, actually. It started off a little rough, but over the past, I think he's on IR now, but he was playing very well. He was playing very well over the past couple of weeks. So I think he signed for a longer term deal. I think he's got a 2 or 3 year deal. So he'll be back next year. I think he's fine. I think he's gonna be fine where he is as a starting linebacker. I also say with going back down to the nickel position, I think that Shaw Smith-Wade is another guy that has been playing. Another pick I wasn't the biggest fan of. Has been playing very well too. So he's a guy that can step up into that nickel role and kind of take some pressure off us needing to take another cornerback. So Shaw Smith-Wade, another guy that can step up.
You've already mentioned some of them. I guess that's and by the way, there anybody in this practice squad here?
Practice squad. Let me see. I don't think so. There's not a guy that I'm looking like, man, he's gonna step up, be the next guy. Nah, I don't see it.
All right.
Nope.
So you have, again, for your top needs, going back there, you got edge rusher, number 1. Will cornerback definitely be number 2 then, or defensive tackle?
I would say I would say DT. I would say DT because I like Mike Jackson. He's playing well. So he kind of eased that need. It just depends whether they bring him back or not.
Okay. And that means that corner would be 3 and safety 4?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And wide receiver is 5.
I can make an argument that wide receiver goes much higher, but again,
it's one of those things where,
actually,
like
I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Let's go ahead and move it up. Let's move it. I think it's number 2, to be honest with you.
2.
I'm moving it all the way up to 2.
All right.
I'm moving it all the way up to 2. I think moving it up to 2 because we need it. I think Bryce to take that next step to be a feared offense.
Yes.
To make people game plan for us, we need to get another wide receiver in there.
I like that one.
ASAP.
Yeah, because you're looking at McMillan there, and if he's still on the board when the Panthers,
you have to consider it. You have
it has to be.
You have to consider it. And I think a lot of Panthers fans would be extremely pissed. They would be pissed if we took another wide receiver in the first round.
Really, they would.
They would be. Yes, they would be. Because they want a defensive, an edge rusher or a defensive.
Yeah, I can
tackle.
I can understand that. I understand.
So they would be extremely pissed if we did that. But I'm gonna move it up. I'm moving it up. Wide receiver, number 2 need behind edge rusher. And if you got to make that argument when you're in that draft room and Ted is sitting up on that board and you're picking number 4 or 5, somebody's that is a potential job loss. If your pick doesn't pan out, you had the potential to grab an elite wide receiver on a rookie deal to help your quarterback who has dropped dimes and saw his wide receivers drop the football. That's potential job loss.
Absolutely.
For me.
You're right. And now look, maybe these things happen in free agency, like you said before. So it's very possible. Maybe they sign a guy in free agency that becomes all of a sudden. Now I can't get into who that would be. It could be a trade even. It becomes that's our number 1. All right. Well, then there you go. Then that's no longer the number 2 draft need. But these again are not specifically draft needs. These are offseason needs. These now could end up still being that the Panthers don't spend a lot of money in free agency, don't make any big earth-shattering trades, and the list stays the same going into the draft. So, and look, the bottom line is if depending on where you go in the draft, like you said, if Carter's still on the board, boom, you grab him. If he's off the board, then let's say McMillan's on the board, and Hunter's gone, and Johnson's gone at corner, and Graham's gone. Well, then it becomes that much easier. Of course we're taking McMillan. You got to take McMillan at that point. So you've got enough names here between the 5 I even just mentioned, as far as prospects, just draft wise, that if you land one of them, I got to believe Panther fans are going to be ecstatic.
Yep, so. And to me, the way you just drew that up, that sounds like an awesome trade back opportunity as well. If somebody's looking to get back up in to the top 5, trade back a couple of picks if possible. All right, it takes 2 to tango, correct?
Because you have 2 quarterbacks that are going in there. Yeah,
exactly. So take that opportunity, get some more play. We're in a position right now where free agency, that's cool, but we really need to start drafting better. We need more cracks. We need more opportunities, right? So we need to get more opportunities, more players on rookie deals so that we can then save that cap space and build this team the proper way. We have been trying to fill these needs with free agents and lower tier free agents for the longest, and it hasn't worked out. So we have to get better talent in here in the draft and develop them. That's been the biggest issue with the Carolina Panthers. And I think if you look at this draft class, although they did end up a lot of them on IR, it started to look good for a lot of them. We talked about Xavier Legette, who is got to pick it up a little bit. He got to get, got to do some development there. But we think he's going to be better. We think he's going to live up to it. Wide receiver 2, solid. But then you look at Jonathan Brooks, potentially, we got that glimpse. If he turns out to be healthy, and he has a lot of potential. Him and Chuba could be great. Trevin Wallace was playing very good before he got injured. Shaw Smith-Wade playing well. Jatavion Sanders playing well. That's five contributors, potentially, if injuries aside, right? Those Absolutely. Are good players. And that, to me, is a really good base. If you compound that with another good draft class, that's how you become a good team. You can't just build it in free agency. You got to start building through the draft. And so I'm confident. Dan Morgan's done a great job. Great job.
Okay. Yeah. Looking at players, by the way, before I let you go, that could be let go and that are not free agents. We mentioned Miles Sanders.
Out of here.
So you'll save a few bucks there. And I also see Tuttle, actually. He's making a few million.
Out of here.
Yeah. That's he's stealing money, isn't he? So
yes, he is.
Other than that, I don't see anyone else that is making enough that, correct me if I'm wrong, that they could let go and save a little bit of money.
I have to look.
I think that's about it. Yeah, I'm not seeing anyone else based on this conversation we're having. I'm not seeing anyone else. So, so in that respect, a matter of fact, it says the Panthers have, now again, I don't know who they have to sign, but it says they have about over 30 million in cap space.
Yep. 31 million in cap space, not too many internal guys to sign. You got guys like Coke. There's some restricted free agents that probably are going to get re-signed. Shouldn't incur massive amounts of money for us. So, I think, again, we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. I think we're going to make enough moves in free agency to where, we're going to be fine. What's going to be interesting, though, is if we go out and get a veteran, T. Higgins, the wide receivers that are available.
Yes.
And if they go out and do that, then it's going to get really interesting. Yes. I don't see us doing it, but we could certainly make a splash. Go out there, get a T. Higgins or another available wide receiver, top free agent wide receiver. That's where things get really interesting.
Yeah, the thing with T. Higgins, the one that you just brought up is, someone's going to give him a multi-year guarantee deal. It always happens, but I don't know if I can do it. I just don't know. He is so banged up all the time, and you wonder whether or not, is that a Bengals thing? Is he just not giving it his all because he's kind of saving himself? You don't know. I mean, if it's not, it's a risk. It's a big risk.
It's risk reward. You know what I mean? The contract must be written as such. You got to safeguard yourself. So
yeah, absolutely.
I don't know, man. Listen, I can tell you right now, just the buzz on Panther Nation streets. They want T. Higgins badly.
Oh yeah,
they want T. And again, we want a wide receiver. We need another wide receiver. Yeah. So T. Higgins. I don't know who else is going to be available. How
about Stephon Diggs? He's going to Dallas, probably.
Probably so.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. But we need a wide receiver bad.
Looking at this receivers here, you got Chris Godwin.
Godwin is another name that's
hey, he's got ties to Canales.
He does. He's off injured too, so
he might actually be back. They're saying that if the Bucs win one playoff game, he might return.
Interesting.
So
that is an interesting connection to bring Godwin to.
Absolutely, but you're right. He's also been banged up. Yeah,
but I would also I caution against that one too, because he's also played opposite of Mike Evans, right? Is he really that guy? Because you've been.
I agree. I'm not sure he's a number one.
Yeah, Mike Evans has been taking all the all the attention, and you get to play free a little bit. So when the attention is on you, are you truly that guy? I don't know. T. Higgins, I believe, is a better receiver than Godwin, and I take Higgins, and he has the same concern, right? I'm not trying to dismiss that.
You're right.
But I think Higgins is the preferred guy if I'm going to go out there and get one of those two.
And unfortunately, I'm looking at this list now, and there's really not a lot else. I mean, you got Hopkins is you don't know what you're dealing with because he's getting older. You have Amari Cooper hasn't looked good at all this year, even on the Bills. Maybe he could pick things up in the postseason. Keenan Allen is getting older.
I love Keenan Allen, though. I would take Keenan Allen in a heart. We got an aging Thielen, but Keenan Allen, he's from the Carolinas.
Okay.
First of all, so I would. Keenan Allen is great. Like he's always going to be good. So I would take a Keenan Allen. But he's not the wide receiver one. That's just more of a
That's true.
Heartstrings plug there because
He could be that for 1 year. It's possible. As a whole, kind of hold over at number one spot for a year and help even though he got Thielen as a veteran. But then, hey, you know what? You could bring back Deontay Johnson.
No, that's not happening.
what a nightmare scenario that was, huh?
That is not happening. Yeah, that was listen, for all intents and purposes, I think we won. Like we got away from him. We were able to get a something back. We got something from him. So I think it was good. I take that. We won that deal for sure.
All right. Well, we're done. We went through the depth chart. We went through the big needs for Carolina coming up this offseason. We talked about the coaching, and it looks like it's all about the defensive coordinator spot. That's going to be a big story in Carolina. Free agency, injuries, and all that kind of stuff. So, Rashad, great job as always. Really appreciate your time. And for any of the fans out there that are watching, maybe they've never heard about your show before, Panther Nation Podcast. Tell them a little bit about how much time you give on your channel to Carolina Panthers talk.
Yeah. We talk Carolina Panthers all the time. We go live every Tuesday night at 8:00. Sometimes we shift it depending on if there's some conflicts. But every Tuesday night, we're going live to talk anything Carolina Panthers football, sometimes draft, sometimes other things, fantasy football. My co-host is a big fantasy football guy, so we talk.
He's in my fantasy league. He's in my dynasty league.
How'd he do? Is he not doing well?
He did not make the playoffs this year.
Well, he sucks. You could say that.
Oh, well, I'm not going to say that, but because dynasty is different. Dynasty and strategy and dynasty. Sometimes people take the strategy of developing your team first and getting draft picks and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not sure what his strategy is. He might have that strategy. So.
Yeah,
but you know more than I do.
Yeah. Now I retired from fantasy football, so that's his thing. But yeah, I mean we're on all the time. We're on X at Panther Nation PC. Check us out. We're always active on X. Yeah, man. We have a lot of player interviews that we've got. We've interviewed some Panther legends, including Steve Smith. Just really low key, man. We're just having fun, man. We love the Panthers. We love Panther football. And we're excited to track this turnaround because I believe we're about to turn this corner and things are going to be great for the next couple of seasons. So get on now while you can. Panther Nation PC, come check us out.
Excellent, Rashad. We'll talk to you again after the draft. And unless, of course, there's some blockbuster news story that happens between now and then, and we got to get your take on it. But we definitely can't wait to find out how things go after the offseason starts to come to a close following the draft, even though there's still some movement to be made. But that's a really good time to check in with you. And then we check in with you a few months after that to preview the 2025-26 season. So appreciate your time as always, Rashad. And again, can't wait to talk to you next up, probably after the draft.
Absolutely. Anytime you need me, just hit me up.
Will do. See you, Panther fans, and everybody else out there on our Arled's YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, and we'll see you next time.